Irish John intro. Anyway, hello, 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 and welcome to another One Lion of Code. I am One Lion, and it's doing the thing. Why are you doing the thing, window swap? Didn't I tell you not to do the thing? I need to get this to happen in the browser so I can find out what the container is for it, because I can't F12 in here. Kind of annoying. Whatever. Anyway, hello, happy Friday to all of you. Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day. That your week went well. If this isn't automated realms. Automated realms. You need to quit doing that. Clear history. Clear history, please. Things are going well. Hi, TBD Gamer. Great stream this morning. I was completely involved in what I was doing. So, didn't really fully tune in until the very, very end. But it looks like you got some stuff done. Oh, man. For those of you who this isn't the end of your week, I hope your week is going well and will end well whenever it does. I'm going to pop into the desktop channel, change my scrolling marquee to this because today is a Friday, and Fridays on this stream are community days. I am so not prepared. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but that's the joy of community day. You get to decide. I personally don't have any topics. So TBD says ending on a kind of unsuccessful status. Hopefully get some time tomorrow to make that work. What time are you traveling? Are you traveling on Monday? Do you at least get a weekend for yourself? Sunday lunchtime. Well, safe travels. For those of you that hadn't listened in, TBD will not be streaming Monday through Thursday next week, but he will stream on Friday because he's going to have a community day as well next Friday. It's going to be awesome and amazing. Show up. TBD Gamer. Ooh, I am having trouble with the words. We'll give you another shout out later in the stream, but TBD Gamer is a .NET developer working on a project management, project planning platform that is going to be developer focused. It's going to have separation of concerns type of stuff, done much better than the current existing project management systems. And yeah, it's going to be great. Fantastic. He shared his the open source parts of his app. So his entire app, how do I say that? His entire app is not open source, but he does have parts and pieces of it that are open source, like a Kafka library, for example. And the Kafka library is really a wrapper around another wrapper, but it's like more tailored to his scenario. And you may also find it helpful as well. And hi, Scott. You know, Scott, if I finally get to a point where this bot, the bot Remake, is connecting to Twitch and listening for chat, we might be able to start using semantic kernel that you have been, can I say endorsing? Recommending? And I really, really do want to get into it. Evangelizing, that's a great word. It does look like it's going to be super helpful instead of needing to write my own open API every single time that I want to open AI API every single time that I want to communicate with an LLM. I need to finally get to a point where the bot is actually, connecting to Twitch and listening for messages and stuff. So actually implementing these services. It shouldn't take much. I mean, I already have the service built, and if I just go with TwitchLib, then I can just port the code right over. But I was thinking of rewriting the Twitch connector stuff myself. But I don't think I'm going to do that, especially since I haven't gotten anywhere on it except for making the wrappers around the wrappers. The the interfaces for the services for Twitch, actually for just all platforms. And I guess I didn't use an interface. I'm using platform service base. Oh no, I will be. Sorry. I will be using semantic kernel when we get to the point of starting to connect to the LLM and trying to do requests and stuff like that. I definitely want to use it. Sorry for misspeaking. But yeah, did I actually say anything about Community Day? It's Community Day on our channel, and Community Day is a day where I invite you to bring up topics if you have any. No pressure, no requirements, nothing like that. But you are invited to. If you have any topics related to the channel's content, feel free to bring it up. We can talk about it. If you have questions about your own software development stuff that you're working through that you actually want to go through on stream with us, then we can talk about that. If you want to show off the stuff that you are already working on, you're welcome to do that. I open up a voice channel in Discord where you can join using your voice if you feel like doing it that way. If not, feel free to do it right in chat. Just know that if you do join the voice channel, your voice will come through on the stream. I record the streams, post the VOD to YouTube after the stream at some point in time, so your voice will also be on that VOD. So if you're not comfortable with that, then chat would be the way to go. Oh dear. And if you're not comfortable with speaking up at all, then thank you so much for your lurking energy, and thanks for being here. And no obligations, etc. etc. So, while we're waiting for any topics, any chatters, any voice channel people, we are going to continue on a little bit with the bot remake. So I already have this bot that you can see in chat. Oh, cool. As long as it's not solely CSS. We're not doing CSS today. We are definitely, if we are going to work on code, it's going to be the bot. And right now we're working on the back end of the bot. So we don't even have to worry about UI concerns at the moment at all. Yeah, so the bot. What is the bot? The bot is the thing that listens for chats and does various things based off of certain commands like coin flip or die roll. And I forgot that the other bot has a coin flip, but it doesn't have a roll die. And all of the other custom commands that we have that I didn't use stream elements for. You can see Automated Realms is the one that is giving us that. I used to have a test. I think I told it to be only me that could run it, but the way that I'm managing the commands that are allowed is I have them in a table in the database. No, I didn't want to double click on it. I wanted to see the data. Oh, I'm going to have to go get a tissue soon. Otherwise, you're going to see a snot-nosed kid on your screen. Show data. Hello? View data. No? Yes. An error occurred while attempting to open data. Cannot be null. What? Try game. Okay, we're good to go. So we have a TVD command. We have a Tyndall command. And so the way that I have this set up is I have an enum that tells us what the command type is, or command action is. What is this? Usage count. Who is allowed to run that command, what the cooldown is, etc. All of that stuff. And so if I wanted to add a text command, then I would just add it to this table. If I wanted to add a command for perform some kind of function, such as in coin flip or roll die, then I would tell it to do command action. Oh, so here, for example, command action 10, which I know from code is a game command. And that, I think that's enforced. Do I have a command type? Yep. I have a command action table. That table is, again, managed through an enum that is populated in code first migrations in Entity Framework. So the database uses migrations, and then if I add an enum, that will also be a migration. So I'll need to make sure to add migration for the added column. Oh, okay. Tissue time. Be right back. Boogers. Okay, so that's how the database table works for the most part. So the things that I currently have set up for the bot remake are some backend structure type things. I'm changing it so that it's cleaner than my original. You can see here that I have only this shared, well, I don't know, these aren't bad. Shared client, shared models, and shared server. The server is where the Signal R hub lives, as well as the actual Twitch lib connector. Hello, Zoltra Lord. How have you been? So the Twitch lib connector, the Twitch options so that it knows how to connect to Twitch lib, or use Twitch lib to connect to the Twitch API and all that stuff. And some services like the bot command service, and this is where we see the things on the server that say when we receive a message, process the message using the command manager. And this is where it goes to the database and says, all right, what kind of response should I give for this message? Is it supposed to be a chat response? Is it supposed to be part of the game? Route it to the appropriate thing? Do a, is it actually intended to be for the Automated Realms LLM? This text gen client will be the thing that gets replaced with using semantic kernel. These are channels that the bot is allowed to respond on. These are the people that are allowed to respond to use the super permissions. I don't know what to call it. And that's hard coded. That can be done in a database table. It can be done specifically in app settings, etc. Yeah, feel free to chat away with automated ROMs. It's running on a different computer, so it won't slow down the stream. Is the bot going to be using the new Twitch API send chat message instead of the IRC connection? I'm hoping so, yes. So the original, that you can definitely see where the original is doing send text message request. Post chat, I think is what I called it. Post to chat. So this is all the LLM stuff. Where's post to chat? There it is. Okay, so post to chat is the thing that uses send message, which is the thing that uses the Twitch lib. That's the bot hub. Where is the actual... Here it is. Okay, so using the Twitch lib, Twitch chat client send message. And I don't think this is the one from Helix. I think this is just the regular IRC. It'll take a minute. Just client. Yeah, I don't exactly know how to check what method they are using here. This version of Twitch lib is... .3.9. Yeah, 3.9. Which is latest stable? Interesting. I am at latest stable Twitch lib in my existing... Oh, this is the Blazor bot. No, it's not. It's automated ROMs bot. It's my existing bot. So I'm on the latest stable Twitch lib. Did they stop development on it? Is that what's going on? Is that why I decided that I might want to 13 updates available? Yeah, but it isn't for Twitch lib at least. I'm not going to update the old bot because it is running and I'm able to update it and republish it. Yeah, last year was the last commit on PubSub at least. What about the core Twitch lib? Last year. A fix to the README last year. So please check the dev before doing PR. Yeah, this might be why I was thinking that I want to implement my own Twitch API connector. But there's so much work already done in Twitch lib for setting up the PubSub hooks and the API connection. Gorsh. I saw a dev branch with recent commit. The only branch that I see is a rewrite that got started 2 years ago and has a nada. Oh, for the API project. Let's see. Ah, okay. So the most recent would have been 3 months ago in this fix example. Hey, I know this name. The dev branch has a change from last month, which is a fix drop reason. Interesting. Why aren't there PRs for this, guys? Okay. So you guys tell me, should we create our own API, specifically the one for sending and receiving messages to chat? And if so, then we will also need to do the one that does pub sub for listening for redemptions and being able to control things like doing shout outs and yeah, things of this nature. Oh, ads and stuff. Hello, good VJ and Foolish Snubble. TBD said, when I first started streaming, I saw Twitch Lib API, said heck no, and wrote my own. So you did write your own. Did it seem involved? Because I've only ever used Twitch Lib. And then once I got it working, I just left it alone. And then I update the code every now and then for which commands do what. Because there are two things to connect to. One of them is, like I said, the thing that lets you do chatting and post messages to chat and listen to chat. And then the other one was like when GoodVJ just redeemed archery, that doesn't come in as a chat message, that comes in as a pub sub event. And so that requires the pretty much a secure client for you to be able to use that functionality. You can get it. You're going to get it on this one. I know it. I mean, that's what this is intended to be for. So I am seeing recent changes. That's cool. Because they did change their API so that the IRC stuff is getting turned on. Something. I don't know. Words. But yes, I will be posting, or right now the Blazor bot itself should be posted to GitHub. Do I have it pushed? I don't. Initial setup of structure, maybe. I don't know. I only want to commit the Blazor bot. Okay, so this Blazor bot remake will be, or is, public open source. Yeah, public and open source. And we are on 2 service interfaces, which is this issue. Yeah, so I really should follow this. I did implement every pub sub event struck. What? Man, there was a tool. I can't remember what it was. And every time that I try to find the video for it, it's like it's disappeared off the internet. But it happened during either .NET Conf or MS Build 1 or 2 years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago now, where they showed you feed it an API and it generates the POCOs, pretty much the POCOs for all of the objects. And I can't find it at all. But let's see the models. Oh, wait. That was Dickabot. All right, I'm pulling you in 3, 2, 1. Hello, TBD.
Hello.
Yes. You have been mic checked.
Thank you. Figured it was easy to drop into the chat than it was to sit there typing.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
I just had to give my boss some bad news. I'm like, we're on training next week. Yeah, that thing you wanted in production 3 days ago. Yeah, it's not there anymore.
Oh, you are using Helix. Nice.
Yeah, so
There they are.
my stuff I ended up with. So again, I took
that's
a look
good,
at the way that I looked at the Twitch Lib implementation. I just didn't like the API. It didn't sit right with me how you set it up and stuff. So I kind of structured this. It is poorly structured overall. I think there may be a new branch, a pub sub branch, that is better reflected.
Am I actually sharing my camera?
Feature webhook full. Yeah, feature webhook full.
Here, let me make it so that you can see the camera live in Discord. There you go. Now you won't be on delay. Feature webhook.
Yeah, so feature webhook full pretty much has the latest version of the code, I think. I was working on it this time last year because they announced that they were going to deprecate IRC. So that's going to need to be there. So I got all the structure in place. It's just the auth stuff that I struggle with, like that entire. That's why TwitchLib is so much better, because it handles all that stuff for you. But the way I set this up is it kind of creates a pipeline, so messages get posted through the pipeline. So you can kind of add middleware and stuff in place. So I built a lot of this stuff with. It maps all the messages and it will hand them down as nice clean objects for you is the goal. But then you can, like, if you want to say, okay, well, I want to put a game in place to react to this, you can do that. But then if you need something else to react to it, you just add another piece of the middleware and it still reacts to the same messaging. So the IRC stuff is pretty solid.
Sorry, had to cough. Yeah, that's awesome. Good.
But it is a challenge. It is a big challenge, and it's one that I've struggled with a little bit because it's like, do you spend a ton of time writing this and not getting any streaming done on other things that you could be doing?
Right, exactly. And that's why it's like on my Friday streams, if we happen to get to it, then we do it. And if not, oh no, I still have a working bot for now.
So the way this was is actually once you've got all the pieces wired up, all you do is create a command, and that now you define the command there, like you can see, and that's now a command, and you can decide, can only an admin execute it, whatever. And then this stuff would be easy to do code generation for, right? So you could actually make it so if it's just messages to the stream, you can just you can use code generators to do that.
Here. I am looking for you. Copy. Nope. Copy. TBD Gamer folder.
I just noticed one fork. Like, who forks this?
I would. I mean, I'm cloning it because it's just easier to, since I'm not going to be contributing or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get your models. I'm lifting your models and stealing.
That's what it's there for, right? That's open source.
Code generators are easy to understand how to set up when you get the gist of it, but the actual, like when you're having it output code, at least for me, it wasn't super easy because it's mostly strings that you're having it output code as, or you're using strings to generate the code.
There's some quirks to CodeGen for certain. I used an example when I did CodeGen for. I created like a mediator saga library early on in the Liquid Sky stuff, and it needed to wire up an event to other things. I didn't want to do the boilerplate code every time, so I created code gens for that. And it kind of worked, and I create template files and then pull them in and merge them. But I think there's a few different ways of doing code generation. I think I might have chosen a wrong version of code generation.
The what are they called? TTs?
You can use it, yeah. You can use the
Templates?
text transform, the T4 template stuff.
Yeah.
Still, that's still available
But
too. But
I
the
have
actual
no idea how to do that at all. I'm
it's quite
pulling up
challenging.
the icon example where I'm using a, what am I using? Am I using the path? We'll see it. I'm either using an attribute or I'm using a path to identify a file during compilation to generate source code for.
Yeah.
What are we using? Show us. We are using an attribute. So essentially what this, for anyone that is interested in this, what this is doing is while compilation happens, this is like an interceptor that happens just before compile or during the compile. And it's like when it sees a class or a block of code that it wants to compile, then you filter out and say, is this something that I want to generate code off of? And you identify it. If it is, then you add it to a list of something to the context. I forget. You have like this context that you add the block that it's reading to, and then in the actual execute, you have that context, and then you say, create a new file in this location. Yeah. Or actually, no, you don't even get to specify the location. It goes into analyzers and somewhere in here, I forget. It's been a little bit, and this one isn't even as far along as I thought it was, but you pretty much just write text to add code.
Yeah.
Sure. Do that. Generate this method. We'll see what Copilot's going to do for us to see if we get an example. Anything? Copilot? You're the one that told me to use this. Nope. Anyway. Cool. Jeez. This thing really does want to do unit work. Anything for... yeah, here we go. There's an example of adding code to a generated file. So I don't call that easy, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just trying to look up. Yeah. What was it? I'm trying to look up the Saga stuff I did, see if it's if I did anything different there.
Yeah, it's essentially initialize, you register the thing that says, here's the thing that's going to tell me whether or not I want to pay attention to this file that's being compiled. Here's where you specify the rules, and then you put the files or the blocks of code that you wanted to use to generate your new code into the context, and then on execute for each thing that you are observing that you care about, then you do the actual generate code for this thing. Oh, and I think the actual generated file goes into the library that you're referencing your source gen from, which, by the way, when you do that, you need to make sure that your source gen is net standard 2. Can't use net standard 2.1.
Nope.
And that the file that's referencing it, which I'm pretty sure that I have something referencing it, probably would. I could have sworn it would have been shared. Yeah, it's right here. Is it right here? Embedded resource. No, I don't think I'm referencing it anywhere. But if I were, there is some stuff that you need to do inside of the reference. And I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't reference it anymore, so.
Yeah. I was thinking of code generators for C#. Is it just to run a Roslyn code analyzer process? Yes. Or analyzer, process the syntax tree, yes. Then handle partial updates for performance and schema caching if you need. I don't know about that last part, but the first two definitely. That's hopefully what I explained.
The thing I found from code generation, the stuff I was playing with anyway, was from a development perspective, it was actually kind of tough because I was changing the code for the generators and then trying to change the code that was using the generators. So I had massive caching issues. Now I don't know if I'd have those same caching issues if I was consuming it as a library all the time that was established. But that was one of the tough things I found. But yeah, I was using a templating thing as well, so I didn't need to do the string replace, which was nicer. I could just feed it an object and it would actually do all the templating for me. But I was so essentially I was combining T4 templating with that. I used the mediator library that I use to actually build off of as the example of how to use source generators, because with Jimmy Bogart's mediator, you actually have to reference the mediator library from the application itself that's going to use the library, and then you have to tell it to go find the assemblies that contain the command, etc. With mediator, it basically generates a add mediator method, and it looks like it's in the Microsoft extensions dependency injection framework namespace, so right. It gets included. But what that is it's a source generated extension that has done all the I've figured out where all your commands and handlers are, and I'll actually bind them all up for you. So it's a source generated version of that, so it doesn't have to rely upon any reflection to actually go and do what you need. So it's kind of nice, but it's a little bit of magic that you have to understand. But you don't then need to have an extra dependency on mediator library from your actual application. You just need to have the dependency on the library that's being used. So.
Right. Like if we took your project, for example, the place that I would use a source generator is in the where was it? In the commands. So this folder here might just be, depending, on what syntax you prefer, but this could just be XML or JSON, and you define each command using either XML or JSON, unless it's doing actual C# functions. And then the source generator would take that JSON and turn it into Twitch command.
Yeah.
And implements iTwitch command, can execute all that stuff.
But the application, the actual bot code when it starts up just scans, does a bit of reflection to scan these. So as long as they're built and then it works. So.
Yeah, that's one thing. So I was talking about the L2J server thing a little bit ago. That's one thing that I don't understand, how Java is able to do that, if Java is actually doing that. They have this folder that has .java files, so not the .class compiled Java stuff. And when the server starts, that's when it compiles those files and reads them. So it's sitting there on the server. You make a change to the Java file, restart the server and it's recompiled. It's not like you're deploying a solution with compiled files. I was like, how is it still starting so fast if it's doing that? So I don't even know if that's a thing we can do with C#. Can we just have a whole bunch of .cs files in a folder that you can just write and add to, and then when you restart the server, it then compiles them and adds it to the deployed project?
Yeah, I think you can do that.
You can. That's so cool. I want to learn that.
I've seen that.
And is it Snubble? Is it because F# doesn't actually compile?
Well, no, it's all JIT, right? So
yeah.
So I think the Roslyn.
It does.
I don't see this because what's it called? Not TwitchBot, StreamerBot. You can actually write scripts in StreamerBot that it will execute. And I think I did a sample. I think I built a sample for this because Rambling Geek was asking. I think I got it working. I just got to figure out if I actually uploaded it.
It's because it's treating it as a script. Okay, that makes sense. So this is like if you have a browser-based IDE and you're writing C# and you tell it to compile and run, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got it. And yeah, I was just like, but you have so many. Like there are. If this is a quest folder, for example, there are 400 or more quests. I don't know how many there are. There's a bunch. And maybe I can be brave enough to show an example of this. Okay, so here is the folder workspace for all of the quests. And here is a .java file that I could modify, restart the server, and have whatever bug I'm working on fixed.
Yeah.
But it still does some kind of compilation, because if I have a compile time error, it'll catch that on the server restart. So I don't get it. I still don't get it. Because there's so many of these. I'm going to have to learn that if I want to turn that into a C# library. It's going to be fun. It'll be great. It'll be grand.
Yeah, another project.
Yeah. Which I was talking about. That's a possibility that we can do after Finance Man. Totally up to everyone else. So you are on the line to point me through your implementation of TwitchLib, not TwitchLib, Twitch connector type thing.
Yeah.
Where are the models that you were talking about for the PubSub events? Let's start there.
You're asking hard questions.
Yes, we're here to ask the hard questions.
Get that up so I can orient myself.
Denied.
So,
Peter's
fun
here.
fact, as a lesson, don't call the library that you're building your bot off the same name as your bot.
Wait, okay. This is going to be difficult then. Is it though? No, it's not going to be difficult because I am calling each of the bots themselves Twitch bot, Discord bot, and YouTube bot.
But what I did is I created tbd.bot as my main library, thinking I was going to do that, but then I decided to make it a library after the fact. So my actual bot code is not the same as my actual. So I have a use of that library, so which will help me orient. And then I have the library itself. But I called the actual bot on my machine tbd.bot, which is not the same as that library. Second. So
Yeah.
not my most genius move.
I've already precise that. So, like I was thinking it would be here, but it sounded like you had a lot more models than just these three.
So there is. That's the one.
Oh, I also need to know that too when we get to it.
So there's
reward redeem message. Okay.
So the way that Twitch is going to work is actually PubSub and webhooks are still different things.
Yes.
And webhooks contains all the events that they are going to publish. So I went through the entire webhook API documentation and implemented every single event that they had at that point as an actual object. So there is a base object that is based off of that's based off of. Let's be redundant, shall we? But like channel prediction,
yes, please.
cheer, etc. So if you go to webhooks directory there,
webhooks,
up above there, yeah, you see events.
Look at that. Beautiful.
So that is an implementation of, again, at that point, whenever I did this 9 months ago, when I started it, that's when they actually announced they were going to change IRC out. But that is an implementation of every single event that they had in the API docs at that point. And it's tested.
Now, those events, they still do happen with the replacement. What is it? Developer.twitch.
Yeah. As is always the case with Twitch, they have different ways of doing things. They have the documentation is never quite trustworthy. Because they have PubSub, event PubSub, but then they have webhooks that is not PubSub in the same way as PubSub. So conduit.
Guys.
So handling webhook events, I think it is.
Handling webhooks, you said.
Yeah.
And then in here. Yeah, this doesn't look like the actual API itself. That's what's going on.
Yeah. And it's actually a project in that solution called webhook testing, where most of those commands, most of the handlers that I've got for building that code out are tested. But there you go. There's the actual. So I implemented every single message for those webhooks.
Because I'm just looking for what can we port over directly, and I'm saying port, but it's really rip. Port over directly from your. Oh, I'm in the wrong branch.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, that's why it's missing.
What's the get
hey,
checkout? Get checkout, right?
Yep.
And it was called.
Fun fact on Napalm's comment there: I have yet to use a mapper at all in Liquid Sky. So I'm still of the opinion, why do we need mappers?
Yeah. Are you using extension methods, or like are you ever needing, well, I mean, obviously you're going to need to convert from like database entity to
right, but
view model.
Most of the database entities are actually a very small number of fields. If it's like 5 or 10 fields, I have no issue with hand mapping that every single time.
Oh.
And big systems broken up.
Okay.
I don't need to do anything like that. If it was 20 or 30 fields, like if it was a legacy system, okay, I'd probably change my mind a little bit. But I've yet to use an automapper at all.
Yeah, I've used automapper, and
you don't need the quality, just need to check out feature /webhook for.
Oh, enemy quotes. Not a
Oh, you need to be in tbd.bot. You've not gone in the
My
folder.
gosh. Thank you.
Good.
So helpful. All right. Actually, I should just open the solution. Yeah. Yeah, so I've used AutoMapper because it was recommended to me and I wanted to try it. I was never really into it because I always wrote extension methods or helper methods on the view model, like from entity or what's the other one that you would use? Implicit operator.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in here, by the way. In my implementation, there's a lot of implicit behavior because it casts to and from JSON.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of the only phrase I've ever been told is clever code, and I hate it sound arrogant. It's not clever code. We shouldn't find code clever. It's effective or it's useful or it's over-engineered.
But they're not talking about the code itself. They're talking about the
Yeah.
approach used to generate the code.
Yeah. So I actually, in the samples folder there in this solution, I actually did test all the webhooks or most of the webhooks.
Wow.
So what I did is I actually configured the system so I could say, okay, I'm going to create a handler for every single webhook, and now I can just handle that event. And then I've got one core piece of, the intention is to have one core piece of code that dispatches that event. So to the rest of the code, you don't even care that it came from Twitch. It's just already wrapped up in an object, and you can create as many handlers as you want around something. Because I like getting away from the underlying technology as quickly as I possibly can.
So Snubble, I have bad blood with Duende. Just me, personally. Bad blood. Bad blood. Awful.
Duende.
The identity server people.
The identity server people that was like, no, we're gonna pay. Now you're gonna pay for it.
And I understand that. I mean, I have nothing against it, but when it's something that's shipped with Visual Studio templates,
yeah,
it's like if you're going to add authentication and authorization, then we're going to give you Duende for free. But then it's like, well, no, you're going to have to start paying for it because it's hard to maintain and takes up a lot of time. And
yep,
it's valuable. It's well done, and it's pretty cool. But had I started implementing my own token server type situation for my needs from the beginning, I wouldn't have needed to rely on it. And so I was stuck in Identity Server 4, and it was bad. It's really bad.
Still feel there's a massive gap in my knowledge as far as identity.
Oh yeah, we were going to talk about that,
etc.
That's why I wanted to get to this. Gosh. All right, help me get your event models and handlers, I guess.
See, the intention of this code overall is that the handlers are literally dispatched events. So the event code, so the events are mapped from Twitch docs. I chose to handwrite everything. So
yeah. Like, I mean, I did that with the ArcGIS JavaScript API.
So but I didn't implement.
I'm not judging you for it.
I implemented them based upon let's just try and cover everything so I'm ready. Because there is a chat event, right? That's coming as a webhook. The idea is that chat will turn to webhooks rather than using IRC. So events, if you expand events folder there.
Yes. See, you're watching the stream, aren't you?
Nope.
Oh,
I'm watching.
There was that much delay in.
I actually just checked myself.
Oh.
I clicked on Discord. I was like, no, I'm actually watching it because I've got it so I can see chat to the right as well. But I will rely on chat in the pop-up. So yeah, the events folder has. I've tried to structure it neatly, but there's a webhook base event, and then for that base event has all the default fields that are pretty much. So I had something to base everything off of. There's nothing. It's just a.
It's not even an abstract. Interesting.
I didn't want to mess around with that, but then every event is then handled, and then the JSON properties are mapped from the actual event that Twitch provides.
Okay. So essentially what I want then is this entire project.
Yeah.
So we're going to
I
do
think
that.
it has. I think it actually, yeah, it has the API because I did test the API, so it definitely hooks into the API, and has the handler structure, I think, in place.
So TBD, I'm sure you can talk to this one, Napalm's question.
You guys ever use event sourcing pattern? Interesting project. Yeah, I've used it. I haven't got any practical need for it recently, so it's not really something I've done a lot of. Event Store DB is an implementation of event sourcing as a data store. So Greg Young is one of the initial champions of event sourcing. If you want to look up stuff from him, there's a lot of stuff on it. The idea being that you don't have your current state of an object is the events that happened before, which is kind of an interesting concept. So it just gets messy with snapshots, etc. Yeah, but Greg Young is one of the ones that kind of took it, ran with it, championed it, and kind of put the kind of put its stamp. It's like CQRS and CQS, right? CQS is that Fowler? I think that might be Fowler, but then CQRS is Greg Young's kind of adaptation of it, or extension of it.
Things I want to try. I aspire. I thought Aspire was going to be one of them. I aspire to try them. Actually meant the word even without the dumb joke about Aspire. So he did mean Aspire. Aspire is one of them.
One thing, actually, Scott was in Imperium Guy's stream the other day and was talking about like DDD and stuff. It's the one thing that I would love to see someone who has experienced DDD be able to kind of even look at my sort of stuff and say, here's how it would apply, here's how you miss doing, like, because there's aspects of domain driven design that I understand, but I have never implemented effectively, and I'd love to do that and figure out how to do that. But yeah.
And I got
event
this
sourcing
working
is
so fast. Sorry, go ahead.
It's
so slow. That's what I mean.
I've
BDD is life, says Scott.
Because I mean, Liquid Sky is not DDD, is not domain driven, but it is broken down into components that I could understand the domain. Because I honestly feel that sometimes you need to understand the domain to build an effective domain. So understanding the data flow, understanding the use cases, understanding how people are interacting with the software, and what you're actually building. And I think that's lacking for a lot. So I would sooner do Liquid Sky the way I'm doing it now, because it is broken down into components, but then reflect back and say, oh, there's my context, there's my aggregates, those, now I can see them. But that's the way I generally work as well.
What happened to the
Why is that? Tell me I'm missing things. Oh no, because you pulled them in, right?
Yeah,
so is it
I pulled them in.
Oh, it's just missing the namespacing.
Yeah, it was supposed to update all the namespaces, but obviously it didn't. So I am going to change out Twitch streamer bot dot to, what did I call this? Blazor bot. Oh, is this referencing another one of the libraries? It looks like it's referencing infrastructure.
Infrastructure. It's a common dumping ground for me. Unless I've just missed
just inside of here. Yeah, it's inside of here. So I need essentially your entire solution. Does this reference any other? Yes, it does. Oh no, package references. That's fine. I'm good with that.
I've seen a lot of people being fixated on exceptions are expensive, so I don't want to use it. That
Oh yeah,
conversation.
true.
I don't. I've lost away from the exceptions are expensive. I don't. That's why. That's not why I don't put exception handling in code. Especially when I'm developing, I don't put try catches in.
Sounds terrible.
It falls over properly.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you. So I disagree with the reason. Sorry, I disagree with the other people that say you should just not even, or you should allow exceptions to happen when they happen. Because I'm always, where's the middle ground? Where is along the spectrum of don't ever do exception handling, leave that to the application that's using the library to do the exception handling, to always protect against exceptions kind of thing. Whereas well, if I know these things are exceptions that can happen, is there a way that I can gracefully notify the caller that this is bad input, that this is just something that you should not be doing using model validation or whatever else you're going to use?
Yeah. So I think I'm kind of crossing several camps at the same time, right? I'm like, I don't put try catches in development code because I don't know what can go wrong all the time. If I know something can go wrong, if it's an API call, then I should put a try catch and I should catch the exceptions that I know can happen. Because if something that is truly exceptional happens, what happens? I also want to understand what's the impact of an exception at that point. How do I effectively return a status to a client or whatever? So I'm handling it effectively. So I evaluate and use the try catches as I need them rather than being defensive about them. And I think newer developers are more, if you say you need try catches around code, you're going to find a lot more try catches in your code base just randomly because they're scared of what could possibly happen.
Yeah,
So you end up with try catch exception everywhere, and then it hides problems in your actual code. So again, on the documentation thing, a try catch is just as much a piece of documentation as to how the code can behave as it is as is an if statement or whatever, or a method in there, right? So
right. But the thing that I'm talking more about isn't having try catch, it is coding in a way that the exception doesn't even get raised. Like if
yeah,
you know that there is a potential for a field to be provided that isn't supposed to be nullable to be null, then you should handle that and check for it.
right.
And then
So
send
again,
back
that's part of telling the story, right? You should be
yeah,
writing the relevant validation. And
environmental
again,
exit.
I don't spend lots of time trying to do that sort of stuff because that's the sort of stuff you should pretty much quickly find in testing what can happen, how you do it, and then validate it.
Oh, better mute your stream.
Sorry.
What's up?
Hello.
Sorry, you triggered me with the
Yeah. With the DDD
DD.
talk. That was Scott. That was Scott.
Yeah. Anyway,
Thank you so much for the follow.
what were we? Can we talk about DDD? I have takes.
I'll let TBD tell you. Were you finished with the exception handling conversation?
Yeah, I'm good to move on.
So then yes, let's do it.
I don't know. There's the blue book that I had a pristine copy of it from Eric Evans, and no one has read that book. And it's like, I've watched a talk of him saying like, hey, I wish I had written it differently. Wish I had put strategic design. That was his wish.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of aspects, but you just mean the coding aspect, right? Like, how do I organize my code and think about building an app, I guess, the construction, so to speak.
I kind of mean like, I mean both sides, because I think it's difficult because there's the concept and then there's the code organization, and I always struggle with them, and I don't feel I understand domains well enough, especially working alone. I don't understand domains well enough to pull them apart and figure out the contexts and do all those fun things.
But
Many books
should
on.
you? That's kind of like we made this kind of school of thought of DDD where like the Java developers and C# programmers. Why did I call them different? Anyway, I called them developers and C# programmers. The devs and programmers of those two languages seem to have built all these sample projects, and they have this like big ceremony, and you have like an identity interface and like an I value object interface, and like there's a lot of weird extra stuff in there. But I mean, really, just getting the benefits from DDD, and I'm just talking about the construction and architecture, kind of like how they talk about clean code, which I guess is related. It's just not like we don't have to follow the old instruction, which wasn't that bad. I mean, there's a lot more modern bad instruction than than those days, but like you'd end up with this monstrous mess of like just these big tangles of services and help then to listen here repositories. Anyway, like you end up with and then especially if you enforce the layers at every step, you end up with this big mess of stuff. But I can talk through like strengthening your domain if you want to load a model from an entity framework object or a document database. That's generally where it starts, right? You start with the database, I do. And you load an object, and a difference with one style of domain-driven development, which is called the rich domain model, which it means it is not thin, it is a strong domain model. It has methods on it. So like if you said, hey, change address, the original EF module has, you know, address line 1, address line 2, city, state, if you're in the US, zip code. And you could change that. The DDDification of that would be like, change it where you make all those properties private or hide them if you can. And then you make a method called change address with all the parameters on it. And then you start getting into weird stuff like firing events. A address changed event you fire from inside the domain itself. And then you have other parts of the domain like load up and respond to that event. And like, you know, when this person's address changes, I don't even know what I would want my app to do. But maybe you send an email to the customer, but like, that's generally what it looks like. I think I've rambled, but like, just, I don't know.
So with
Yeah.
the Liquid Sky code, I can't remember where I pulled this from. Some of it is actually from some of the clean architecture examples, because early on I had my own structure, which I still believe the code structure that matters the most is the one that you can work effectively. And I don't care if it follows another person's expectation of what's an architecture to the letter. That's someone else's expectation. They're not working in the code. So I do have domain events where a planning item has associated data. If I update the review date, I update the name, I update whatever, and there are domain events that fire in there when I change them, and they're held behind a method on the model, which is actually what I'm loading in and out of the database, which I still think it still feels slightly wrong. I'm not entirely certain. It's something I would love to review at some point. But
I
what
can
happens
tell
is,
you just real quick about loading model from the database. There is like a school of thought that says you have your EF models or whatever your database models, and then you load them into your entities. And this is like taken to extremes with who mentioned event sourcing earlier?
Or wait,
Fuel?
Zulius?
No, Napalm.
Napalm.
Is it Napalm?
Napalm.
Napalm mentioned event sourcing.
So the event sourcing people, that's part of
All
it
of my
is
children.
like you say I start with an empty C# object and I run modifications on it from the data store, whatever you want to call it. And you end up with your perfect model and it's not corrupted up with EF necessities. Anyway. But sorry, go ahead. You were talking about
So I have the
something.
domain events, and I'm actually using Mediator for those domain events. They're basically notifications in Mediator that then I respond to and can listen to from other handlers, and those things pick up the additional logic of now what do I do? And normally that's an integration event, so it publishes out to Kafka to tell the wider system.
Okay.
By the way, here's your data. Here's the current publicly accessible data for this object. So that's kind of how I've done it right now. So again, I think if we're going from the solid software implementation of DDD stuff, yes, I'm not messing around with any sort of aggregates, etc. I do have repositories, but I'm using repositories from our Dallas's specifications library. They're just adapters to the DB context, essentially, just to be able to write specs to clean up the querying stuff. But that's the only way. Yeah.
So number one, a statement about domain events. I have heard about domain events. We almost implemented it. My understanding, and this is something I have synthesized and I don't see written down much, is that domain events are within the same database transaction typically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think domain events are useful. I've never worked in a domain that was but I'm saying specifically the ones that stay within a transaction. I don't think those are useful. Like if you had to say like do thing A and do thing B, I'd rather have somewhere in my code just saying do thing A, do thing B instead of do thing A, firing an event that then do thing B responds to. I don't know. Anyway, but what you're describing is an event-driven architecture that I've done for elsewhere many years. And yeah, it sounds perfect. And you can call them domain events. The implementations I've seen of domain events have dissatisfied me. And what you'll see if you try and search for them, that like these domain events, so called, don't really look like what I think I'm hearing in the literature. So it's hard to find the real deal, and once you do, you'll be disappointed. So what was the other thing we were talking about? I've already forgotten because I rant. The rant like clears the brain. Oh, mediator. Okay. Yeah, and that's
So not mediator, mediator.
A mediator. Yeah, and there are many. What do you use a community one? Some library besides Jimmy's?
I moved away from Mediator
Yeah.
because I wanted to test Mediator, which is it uses code generators, so it's a little bit smoother.
Who does that?
What, name the library after the
No, I mean which one are you using? Like who's
the maintainer of Mediator?
Thank you.
Well, if these people at work could stop asking me things as well, it'd be much more convenient. I'm switching my keyboard and mouse between work and not, and it's like, which one am I on? Am I typing?
Is it this one from Martin Othamar?
Yeah, that looks familiar. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Source generators. I've never seen that.
So rather than use reflection on startup to figure out all the handles and stuff, it actually just builds a source generated method for add mediator, and it's bound them all already. So in there, it's a nice implementation.
Interesting. I don't know anything like I don't.
Yeah, source generators are the answer to all. They just need to make them a little better.
So it's frustrating because it's like, I get that that's a library, but hold on, you called it after the pattern, and there's a library called Mediator, which we've now got to pronounce differently. You made it harder on everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
Like we even confuse SCOD. That never happens.
Okay, I've never heard of it. It's fun.
Oh.
I'm out of touch. I'm old and out of touch, increasingly out of touch. So here we go. Interesting. What was the other thing we were going to talk about? Events. Just remember domain events. I've never seen a domain event, but what your like events, what I would call a distributed event driven architecture. That's fine. That's perfect. It's beautiful. Just and you can call them domain events too, because no one's ever seen them in real life. Unless they work certain places and they don't talk about it or publish their internal code for us to read. Okay, what do we got?
So the fun over engineering component of this part, by the way, and I'll just share it because it kind of adds to the the mess. So we talked about you mentioned about transactions and stuff and the events.
Mm-hmm.
So the way it's actually hooked up is I actually decided to create an outbox for even the mediated events. So they are dispatched in the notifications are actually stored off and dispatched separately. So they don't get committed. The domain events don't get committed to the outbox until the transaction completes to save any updates or data. So it means I get rollback, right? So if the actual action that I'm talking about fails, its domain events aren't published.
Beautiful.
Which was a key piece that I realized early on. So I do support transactions in there, which does help that. But that means that my notification process is actually running as a background job, but I do have resilience there from even the notifications that get published. And then
This
those
takes a little delay. You're saying there's just like a little delay because you're polling or whatever.
Yeah, it's milliseconds, but yeah.
Oh, never mind. You got it.
So
I bet you we currently have a few viewers that are like, why are you doing this formatting to every single file individually? Don't you know about this thing called CodeMade? Maybe. Maybe I do. Maybe I like pushing Control KE, save W. What?
See, so you actually okay? Yeah.
Yes, I do get rid of unused usings.
I don't care about that. Either way, it's fine.
Neither you're like, that's just a waste of time.
I mean, I just
Compiler
run the
takes care of
formatters. Just run the formatter, and whatever it does, like try and separate that out from my commit. That way, it doesn't say like very important thing happens, and it's like me adding white space.
I don't even know where it is
because I ran the formatter. Anyway. That's all. I'm very impressed. I've not Outbox we know is an issue, and I will just say no more about our situation, but yeah, that's nice. That is nice to have. I've read up on that.
Those are the pieces I open source as well, by the way. So the Kafka and so I use the same pattern for Kafka. I use an outbox for Kafka. So even when it publishes to Kafka, it's actually publishing to an outbox. And I did the MongoDB and SQL Server implementations. But the mediator version is open sourced as well.
Can I ask very basic questions about Mongo?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have never. Well, have I used whatever? I basically have never used it, and I used to be a big RavenDB user, and then it crashed in production, so we're not super fond of RavenDB. A lot of crashes, by the way, not just a few. A lot of different issues, I should say. Allegedly, this is all allegedly, but and it has been like 10 years basically. So he's had some time to fix it. But anyway, Mongo, there were no transactions. Do they let you save multiple documents now? Like Outbox for Mongo seems super important because you basically need to implement a transaction of sorts, right?
Yes.
And I don't use Mongo. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay quiet on Mongo because I don't know anything.
So my approach to Mongo so far, so I'm not by any means a NoSQL DB expert. The reason that the MongoDB implementation exists is because for things like changes, etc., the object structure changes massively, and I don't want to mess around with sticking JSON in SQL, right? So I use the NoSQL DB there, and Mongo as the first up.
Even with the JSON column type.
Yeah, I still don't like messing around with that. It's just nah. But it works for now, right? And the one thing that I've been able to prove with the Liquid Sky stuff is the way it's built, I can swap those things out and not worry about them later, right? So again, I've used Couchbase, got rid of that, put it back to SQL, put MongoDB in there. So the changes stuff goes through Mongo, because then I just say, hey, yeah, I've got a document, load out the document. So I probably haven't done much distributed stuff or the need to use transactions effectively.
Well, it's more just saving multiple documents.
Yeah.
Like you know, think SQL terms you're saving against 2 tables or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that maybe that's a use case we need to test.
Look, this is the secret of Outbox and like transactions. Actually, all transactions everywhere. This is a dirty secret. You will find your production apps have been running for like 7 years without a transaction. At least in some places. And you'll be horrified. You'll be like, we're losing data every day. But the truth is, it's rare.
Yeah.
So, like, you know what I'm saying. So, I think Mongo's just working pretty much always. And it is, I don't expect to have an issue with the lack of transactions. But I say this as someone who is comfortable living in filth. So, data consistency is kind of important. I would not like my paycheck to be dependent on a system that has MongoDB's guarantees, but it's all good. Yeah. Same. And again, I'm going to call you Fuel because that's just how I read it. What about your pension?
I don't think he takes offense to it.
Good point. I just I try, but not real hard. What else we got?
Well, Marcus Voice Coder said, don't ask Copilot to do your formatting for you when I was talking about CodeMade. I ran CodeMade, and it was pretty much doing the exact same thing that I'm doing, except slower.
Slower?
You're the faster tool.
It was It was opening every file and then doing format document on it. Oh no.
I had one of my team leads. He insisted on CodeMade, and it didn't matter. Like, I was cool with it. I make it sound bad, but he insisted on CodeMade, and one of the things was sorting properties by alphabetical.
Right. That's terrible.
Which I disagree with. I want
I don't
in modules.
I don't like that.
But he was also, his point was like, look, it's alphabetical. There's all this tooling to help you jump around. And you're going to know, you don't have to think about where to put something. You're not going to have to think, is this called by the function above it or below? Or, you know, it's just, here it is in the alphabet. One less thing to think about.
I forgot how scary it is to watch someone else tinker with code that you've written to never think about. Hey, someone else might actually pick this up at some point. Because you write an open source library and then think, yeah, no one's ever going to
touch that.
And then you go and do stupid things like show it off in a public forum. So,
well, it's not bad. This is one thing that I have no idea what to do with.
ASP.NET Core deprecated.
Like,
good luck.
Everything from like .NET 7 and before, maybe .NET 6 and before, uses Microsoft ASP.NET Core HTTP for the Blazor WebAssembly app specifically.
Oh,
And I have
I would
no
say
idea what to replace it with.
compare it to like a file new project. Go
That's
make
what I
a
did.
new Blazor.
I mean,
And like, compare it, right? Am I crazy?
I did.
I am
You are crazy, but you are also correct. Who? Actually, BlazorBot. BlazorBot is a brand new .NET 8 project, right? Oh yeah, yeah. So theirs is in the framework. It got pulled up into the framework. So whatever gets used now for the HTTP client is in SDK.Blazor WebAssembly. So I honestly don't know.
You might be able to delete it as long as it's not in the list on the new project. Yeah.
But I mean,
There's
I
a
need to
project
use it
that-
to get to a HTTP. Actually, in this case, it was iHeader something or other.
I didn't see Phil's comment. Regions, yes or no, or war.
I just want to poke people because it's fun. I love regions when used appropriately.
This is, yeah, it's
You're
on
allowed
a
to
team. What did your
disagree.
team do when you were on the team? Yeah, I don't like them, but I don't care either. What did you do on the team? Like, did they end up putting them in, or were you the only one who cared?
No,
and did
other
it?
team members used it as well when I was on that team.
Okay. Because that's the essence, right? Like, how does the team like it? They hate it. How does the team like it? Oh, they're fine. That helps them organize. Like, I don't know.
I still think regions are a bit of a smell.
Okay.
It's kind of an indicator. If you're having to put a region around stuff, then you've probably got a lot of code in your file. And then, I mean, some files need it. Without doubt, there are some code files that you cannot get. I don't care what any clean code book says, you're going to end up with some big files from time to time.
Mhm.
Organize them effectively.
Right. So
However it
consider this, organizing them effectively. Consider this. You have a service interface. You have your service implementation. Let's say it's a server-side one. And you have a helper that is not an extension method. It actually accesses instance variables, maybe an injected service or whatever. Are you okay with having a helpers region down at the bottom of all of your private helpers that are shared throughout the public implemented methods above?
Sorted alphabetically. It'll solve that.
Sorted alphabetically.
What you want to do is alternate private, protected, and public methods as well. I mean, I think going back to Peter's point, like the effective use within the team is what matters more. So if that's what the team is comfortable with, then that's what the team should do, because it's them that's got to work in that code base. So I'm okay with it. I don't dislike regions generally. I just think normally you should use them as an indicator, because I think you should look at certain things in your code base and use them as indicators, as maybe there is a problem, maybe we do need to evaluate that and decide yes or no. I'm also going through the effort of trying to get an organization to start looking at its code base and start pointing out these things, because I think complaining about the code base being unwieldy can only get you so far.
How many people on your team roughly?
Well, on my team there's a team of me, and that's it, because I am but we have 4 dev teams, and there's about 20 devs across 4 teams.
That is a lot of good luck. A lot of talky work. I've lost a lot of architectural arguments on my team of like 30 or 40. It was more than one team, to be clear, but like towards the end it was one code base, 30-ish.
Well, from working on monolith, that the core of the application is actually contained within 5 files totaling like 60,000 lines.
Woo!
In the 12,000 file application. So it's like, we need to clean this up, and it's like, yeah, but we need to get more code out. Why do we keep getting bugs? I have no idea. Honestly, it's completely a mystery to me why we keep getting bugs. Maybe it's because we're trying to stick more code in massive files. So I think from an organizational standpoint, going back to regions, if that helps the teams organize the code and understand, we've worked on this, fine. But it should be indicative. Like, I don't want to see a bunch of to-dos appear in code. I don't want to see a bunch of comments. We should fix this later.
We're the same. So I joke that like to-dos are like you just delete them and never do them, because either way you're not doing them.
Partial
Exactly.
classes is another good thing, but it's almost the same as having a region, in my opinion, unless you're going to actually put them in separate files as well.
Yeah,
Then you have to deal with
me,
naming.
but you've done UI stuff. Have you done partial classes anywhere outside of the UI code?
Yeah, absolutely. Services, server-side services. So, like for the UI stuff, that one is easy. My state classes have one partial class that is state handlers. So all of the events that are going to happen for this state, I put them in their own class. All of the model type stuff, all of the properties and base methods, so like set dark mode for my UI state, for example, which toggles dark mode. That's a method in my main file for that class, and then in my events version of that partial, it's
I'm hearing a lot of UI stuff
on dark mode changed. But yeah, so then on services, in Entity Framework, model builder for all of the Fluent UI stuff. Each of the entities could have their own partial context class. So your main DB context, and then you have a partial class of that DB context that only has the definitions for the Fluent API configuration of a specific entity, including its seed method.
I don't know enough about EF core to know why you need that. But I judge you nonetheless. Being ignorant is no barrier.
I think there's actually parts of the framework that we get to use because they're made available because Microsoft has bigger problems to solve at the framework level, and then the rest of us take them and use them. I mean, yeah, like Phil Schammel says, code gen is actually one way.
Easy example.
Generating code. You have to mark those classes as partial if you want to extend them and add extra features from code gen perspective. But
that's fair.
But again, I think that's an internal piece, right? That was developed as an internal piece that we can kind of use, but I think we can abuse it as well. I've used it to kind of organize some code. So I have, rather than create different query types in my GraphQL piece, I actually created partial class of query and then put the relevant endpoints in partial files so that it kind of just organizes them. And then I only have to include query as my query type for GraphQL. That's laziness. I should have organized them differently, but it gives me that ability, and I think that's something to reflect on. But I think it's another potential smell. It's something you should review if you got, because on the topic of services, right now in Liquid Sky, I only use services when the data complexity is I need to pull in data from several repositories at the same time, so that it's a bit more complicated and I can't just do it in a handler. So if it's a direct repository interaction, I handle it in the handler. But if it revolves around more complicated process and needs to fire off something else or interact with another part of the system, I wrap it up into a service. But the moment I come to a service, I'm like, what do I call this thing? Because I hate writing service, because it's just like, if I'm too generic with it, it becomes a dumping ground. And I'm always worried about developers using code for dumping grounds, right? Controllers, dumping ground, because people tend to align controllers with the model in the database, and then you end up with thing controller, and every action that people think is even remotely related becomes in that controller. But services are the same way, so I think it's something I want to be smart with sort of naming. I struggle with.
I haven't gotten to try this, but there is an approach to services, or there are service repository layer. All right, hear me out, y'all. One public method per service. No shared code until you absolutely need it, but you'll know. So, like, I had the change address, whatever thing. It would be a change address service, or that's not generic. And just make sure it says verb. Like, this is a specific action. Change address service, and then you figure out if it's a command or query, and then you just rename the service to change action command. And this is like almost, it's almost what they talk about with CQRS and all that. It's not. It's synchronous. But just imagine how simple and thoughtless it is to just say, I have this UI action, change address. I'm going to make a service called change address command, and I'm going to put one method on it. And then if we share code, we can figure that out, you know. Maybe even make something called something service, you know, on the back end. But anyway, just one method. All right, I do have to go. This has been a lot of fun. TBD Gamer, nice to meet you, so to speak.
Yeah, we often overlap.
And I got, yeah, no, not at all. And I need to get out, and this has been a long stand-up, y'all. But I did show up late, so I'm sorry for that. But I will try better. I will try to do better, and with that, no blockers.
So TBD, do you remember where this web application came from?
I remember. Oh yes, because I register it as an endpoint, don't I? Because of the API, because it needs a callback.
And it kind of looks like it's coming from the OpenAPI package, because I don't see that you're using the .razor SDK or anything, which is the other place it would come from. I've never been able to get this to work on my apps when I try to use web application as something that you pass in.
Oh dear. Sorry, I'm just.
You're okay.
I'm back and forth between work. They recently updated to PHP 7.4 on a server, and it doesn't work, so we have to revert it back. Ugh. 1 second, I'm trying to find that code.
String uses string password, string verb, string data.
Web application extensions.
One company I worked with, their web API had a simple method.
Extension types, by the way, on the topic of partials, are going to create yet another problem there. From the ability to just create massive classes that do like bundle up behavior when they get extension types there, because the extension files are always.
Oh yeah, okay, gotcha. I was like, I'm looking at an extension class, and you're talking extension types, and I was like lost for a minute, but I forgot that that's coming out in .NET 9.
Yeah, it's from Microsoft ASP.NET Core.
Is
web,
it?
Web application there is ASP.NET Core. Yeah, that's what it
You're not even referencing it in this library. Oh, Twitch stream bot.
Is it referencing the
What
other library?
are we
Is it implicit
transitively
reference?
getting? Which is just SDK configuration.
No, it references Microsoft ASP.NET Core app framework.
Well, I mean, I'm also using .NET SDK, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I should. Why isn't all?
It's an implicit. ASP.NET Core is an implicit reference,
right?
Isn't it?
Which should come from Project SDK. Oh, and implicit usings. Yes.
Why does Twitch Streambot reference that? Streambook doesn't reference that.
So let's just add those to this, which is going to be the equivalent of your Twitch stream bot. Give me these.
So Sprake, however you pronounce it,
Mhm.
that is a parsing library that is very fast. And that's what I use to break up the messages and build out objects.
Yeah, it's something that these are referencing. So it's either configuration or configuration binder, or it could be extensions HTTP. Actually, let's find out. I'm not going to speculate. Screw speculating. Is a configuration. I'm going to get a bunch of errors, but I'm not even in the right class anymore. Project. Build. Stop it. Is it in? If you can tell, I like to keep my references minimal, including the usings in the files again, even though that doesn't matter all that much.
Makes perfect sense, though.
There. Wait, now I don't know which one it was. Yeah, I think it's configuration that gives it to us.
Huh.
I really need to remember that, because I was recently trying to have my, the way that I have my stuff structured is I have the client-side service implementations of my interfaces, and sometimes I want to do my, what are they called? Service extensions, essentially, for program.cs, so that you have this library that's standalone, and then you do dot, like in your case, configure endpoints or whatever you call this thing to set up all of your open API endpoints. And it just never really wanted to work for me. Now it is. Cool. So what else? ¿Qué más? Did you have anything more to say on the DDD topic that was going on before? Or on any of the region stuff that we just talked about? I was trying to find an example of my code so that we could pick it apart, and you could maybe give me some pointers on how it could be improved from your point of view. Does it sound interesting to you at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Waterman, probably.
It's funny, I spend so much time on stream talking about, hey, here's my code, look at this. Hey, if you want to criticize it or pass opinions, you can do. And nobody ever does. So I'm like, do I want to pass public opinions on other people's code? So, although I did start the stream with, I didn't like Twitch lip, right? So.
Sorry. Just like you, I got sidetracked because we have a new chat. Damn, I've struggled today to get ref to web applications so I can add extension, and ended up writing custom middleware. So, for our information, it is in the, where did we find it? In Microsoft Extensions configuration. And it's so weird. You wouldn't think that it would, that web application builder would be, or the resulting web application class would be in configuration.
It's weird because when I build, I recently came up against this. Like when I build applications, I kind of put the behavior in a library, and I consider that library, that namespace, all contained within that library, and I build the rest of the code based around that. Microsoft build many DLLs and
in
put them
separate
on the
libraries.
same namespace, and so they all become part of the same namespace. So
yeah,
it's really broken.
I mean, what used to happen, the way that I used to get, I'm gonna say get around that, but work with it maybe is better. phrase is if I, is this yours? This is yours. JSON property name. If I have 12 on something that is in a Microsoft namespace, what used to happen is at the top, it says the NuGet package name. So the package ID essentially used to appear at the top first. And that's why I'm always looking at the source. But now the only thing you get is the namespace, which doesn't tell you the NuGet package it comes from for the very reason you just said.
Yeah.
And that's annoying. So annoying. Namespaces are for the weak. Just prefix all classes with something. Oh, here's something that people may be asking. I know I'm asking it and you have said it on your stream, so I just kind of leave it alone. But why is your preference for your custom namespaces to be lowercase for like project names and gosh, now I can't even find your project anymore because I opened a new one. So project names. Why is your preference to have them all lowercase and namespaces, except for the last part of the namespace?
Okay, part of it comes down to visual preference on the project names, and part of it comes down to pure laziness of renaming namespaces. I have worked in projects that have company name dot whatever all the way down. And if you open an 80 and 90 project solution, everything blurs together. You can't see anything. There's no organization. So I tend to name, I use a lot of solution folders, and I tend to name the library, the project, the same as the DLL that it'll produce. So I don't have to end up with that. Same thing when I go to production. I mean, from a corporate perspective, that naming convention, the whole company name dot whatever, that's kind of a Microsoft standard. But this way I end up with a DLL that is twitchstreambot.dll, and I don't know what I'm looking at. I should go back and namespace everything appropriately, because the namespaces, they're just code organization, right? So that's why my preference there. I like to name the project so I can read it. I don't necessarily want to follow some weird, I say weird as your code has bot live or whatever. I'm not being critical of that. I'm just saying.
No. You're allowed to be though. You're
Everything's called Blazorbot there, right? So you start with Blazorbot on the left side. It's redundant.
Yes.
I'd rather see if
and it's inside of a folder called Blazorbot, and then the entire solution subfolder has a Blazorbot project.
Yeah. So I'd rather have services and have client services and server services underneath services as a folder.
Yes.
And Blazorbot's redundant entirely from a project perspective. So that's why I prefer to do that. It's just a readability thing. It's just, I just find it cleaner. Especially Liquid Sky's now 74 projects. So that solution foldering and naming convention does help me navigate that code base quite quickly. I can say, oh, which component of the system am I in? Oh, I'm looking at view. There we go. We're in view. Everything's related to view. I don't need to care about whether it's, it's called Liquid Sky dot everything. So yeah, that is one.
And Snob was like, just obfuscate everything. It's fine.
But
minify yourself.
Ultimately, I will need to go through and do the namespacing, or at least the naming behind the scenes for the projects. Because Visual Studio, or when you create a project, the namespace and the assembly name are separate things.
Yep.
Technically, I never need to redo the namespacing, but I can redo the assembly names to be more corporate standard, right? So I should go through that point. Yeah.
So that, like, one of your arguments, and I'm going to poke a hole in it, is that you are also being lazy as part of it. And for me, the laziness is let Visual Studio namespace it for you when it creates a new file template.
True.
Because I don't need to actually read the namespaces in order to find out where I'm at necessarily. Maybe I do. If I'm in this file and I'm in the repo reading it, so I'm not in Visual Studio, then I know that I'm in. I don't know which part of this is the project and which part is maybe a folder inside of the project and then a subfolder inside of that. So I would have a whole bunch of projects that I could check. Can I check Blazor bot project, base project, and find a Twitch folder with a core folder inside of it in models? Most likely.
Yeah.
It's probable.
Yeah, but I can still rename space, and now I've got the projects set up the way they are. I can still rename space and change the assembly name. So to the point, like Microsoft again, Microsoft's namespaces and Microsoft's assembly names don't agree.
Right.
They have code in different DLLs that has the same namespace as another DLL, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I can do that later on a mass effort once the code structure is stabilized and I'm comfortable. I think that sort of stuff that's not going to break anything later. And if it does,
unless you're using Blazor. I did find one thing with that, which is really, really annoying. For Blazor, I know you're not using Blazor, but for Blazor, when you are in, oh my gosh, this is a brand new app. Oh, where did I put it? Does anyone see app.razor? Is there an app.razor? I don't have my main. Oh, yeah, there it is. I was like, I don't have my main entry point. Where are you? Maui? In Maui. It makes perfect sense. That's exactly where I should have put that folder. Here. So this thing here to get all of your bundled isolated CSS is based off of the name root namespace, I think, or the assembly name.
Right.
And if for some reason the assembly name doesn't match the project name, then it has issues as well, and it doesn't actually import. And I haven't figured out why, but it doesn't make sense. Same with underscore content slash assembly name. I put everything into system namespace, so I save a few bytes on not having to type using system. And that's what I think the main thing is with putting a whole bunch of the related things in the same namespace, is so that you only have to reference one namespace and then you have access to all the things. But at the same time, it still doesn't really save on much.
Well, being at the I believe in not being scared of the code base. I believe in not being scared of the code at all, and I'm willing to change the structure and reorganize things. So I do have this belief that as you're going through things, if things start to get difficult, if you find code that is difficult to find or whatever, it's probably telling you there's a struggle here because it's not as logical as you thought it would be. And if you're working in a team, it's useful to talk about this stuff. So I think being happy to rename space all that or rechange that is probably where the laziness creeps in for me, because I'm like, okay, I don't need to panic about that right this second. It can be a later decision. If I reorganize code or change things around, I can do it later. So I just don't fret. Obviously, if it trips up certain pieces, you might learn some horrible lessons. So if you leave that up until like the last minute, you might get in a bit of pain.
Yeah, and then like now that we are, this is not a great example, but it is actually happening to you. But someone else is accessing your open source project and using it as an example and building on it. So having namespaces that follow the language's naming conventions, might also, like, that could be a good enough reason to change namespaces.
100%, absolutely. That is definitely something that I should do. Now I've seen someone actually use it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, because of my my CDO, my OCD. It's not real OCD, but my preference to have only used namespaces in a file, such as this, and namespaces that are following my folder structure, just because I can be lazy from that point on and just create new files and not have to rename space them every time I create a new file. Then I want to update all of the namespaces for any imported or used code, which here I am using your code. And if you do want attribution, by the way, I can definitely put a file in here that credits.
Yours to use. I don't mind. If it's helpful.
Well, it's attributed on this video. Then.
This is the sort of stuff like when we in our past conversations about attribution. It's the sort of stuff where this helps somebody else get forward, and I've done the work. It's not something that I need to care too much about, but it does help someone else. Then that's awesome.
Cool.
You know,
because I could see myself going through, like, when I was talking about should we go ahead and create our own Twitch API or Twitch library instead of using TwitchLib, that doesn't look like it's been updated recently. I was imagining myself going through the API, finding all the objects, turning them into Pocos and events and all of this stuff. And you're like, I already did that. And I'm like, I want.
Interesting point, Lamadou. I'm going to say Lamadou raises. I always put extensions into namespace of whatever I write extension for. So if I need extension for assembly, it goes to system.reflection. So everyone who works with assembly can also get their extension. So I don't do that because I don't want my code to be confused with Microsoft code. And I think that's actually probably in their documentation. But then again, I think about it and I realized that earlier on I said mediator, it's add mediator extension gets put in Microsoft extensions dependency injection namespace so that it looks transparent. So you don't actually see any extra libraries added. So it's kind of weird. But I thought I read a long time ago that Microsoft advised against not doing that.
Really?
For the
interesting.
Not confusing a user as to who actually wrote code, because it will create support. If someone doesn't understand that that's what's happening, it could yield a support request having them trying to fix an extension that belongs to somebody else.
It's like, that's not even ours. Yeah, and that's why I liked when it did the essentially reverse engineering the decompilation of external libraries when you F12 on it, that it gave you what NuGet package it's coming from at the top. And that way, you know, this might not be Microsoft's code. This could be another library that does that is Blazored or Blazorized, I think. And they use existing Microsoft namespaces.
But it is interesting and you know, coming all the way back around to Emporium guy the other day, Scott, and I can't remember the other person's name who was trying to help Emporium guy. They're giving him a lot of advice, and he was taking all the advice on. And Emporium guy is easily overwhelmed and easily distracted as well, which just made it amusing. But there was a lot of should. Right?
It's terrible.
And we have a lot of should do this, should do that, should
absolutely.
Do this. Absolutely,
we have a lot of opinions that are
should.
That.
You know, what is should when we all differ on how we do should. Right. So it's kind of
should is subjective to here is what I prefer.
So our experience is definitely led towards our preferences, and then again, working in the code base that you're actually employed to work in is the most important thing. So if the team can work effectively, if the team can make changes, if the team is able to do it, does it really matter if the architecture follows something that an external company says, yeah, you should do it this way? So
right. And that's where, like, I mean, you've definitely called me out on it before, and you can continue to do so, but that's where I get kind of hung up on language that's used, because communication to me on this kind of a forum is there are people that are going to come in that are brand new, that hear a way of doing things and
Yeah.
hear it like this is the golden rule. You must do it this way, otherwise you're not going to be doing it right. When in most cases, that is just the opinion of the person explaining the topic.
Yeah.
So I try to use terminology that is more like, this is how I do it. It'll get you started, but please find your pattern.
Yeah.
And I encourage other
It's
people to
important
do
to grow and learn and understand. And I think sometimes, like again with the whole domain-driven design thing, maybe one day someone will say you're doing DDD wrong, and I'll be like, yeah, but I wasn't trying to do DDD.
Yeah, exactly. It's like your repository is not set up right.
Why my software work? Yeah. Does it have performance issues? Maybe I'll understand them later on down the line. I don't have to solve every problem up front. But I know it's almost time. I just want to end with something that's funny. So earlier on, and hopefully it's I signed up to a job site, right, just to add my resume, make sure it's there, etc. And I got an email from a company saying thank you for applying with this company, or updating your resume with us, or one of our partners, etc.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I didn't apply to them, right? They've used tools to get that and pull it, right? But their tagline is "Intelligence is human." They've got bots pulling code and writing emails that actually, it's like, "Hi Terry, thank you for doing it. Don't do this. Your automated systems did this." Your tagline is "Intelligence is human." That feels really personal.
That's why mine is enhancing life through automation. I know that I'm not going to be doing all this stuff manually. Humans don't know. I won't get there. But yes, we would love to hear your stand up for the rest of today, and maybe if you want to say what you're doing on Monday too.
Yeah. Well, so stand up.
Sunday, Monday.
So I am going to today. I worked on getting the delete process working through Liquid Sky for the requirements. I have a bit of a blocker there in that the eventing is not working the way I want it to do, so I've got to do a bit more debugging there and figure that out. So hopefully over the weekend I get that solved, because on Monday I am doing agile training for 3 days, because that's what I want to be doing for 3 days.
Yay!
So looking forward to next Friday, where we'll have 2 community days. So that's my upcoming highlight. So there we go.
I'm gonna give you a proper shout out again. Cool. And then I'll say more about your stream in a second.
In my Discord. So cool. So thank you very much for everything.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for hanging out on Voice Channel. It was probably longer than you wanted to, but I really do appreciate you being here.
No worries. Thank you very much for the time. Take care.
Absolutely.
Have a good weekend. And wrong mouse again.
Yay!
Bye.
All right. So as we mentioned, that was TBD, and earlier on, you would have heard Live Coding, aka Peter. TBD Gamer is a .NET developer. As you could hear, he is pretty knowledgeable, and he's working on a fairly large application called Liquid Sky, which is going to be a project management / project planning application geared towards developers, where separation of concerns happens. Project managers do the things that project managers do. Developers only see the things they care about that help them do their job as a team or as an individual. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. He's doing it in a way that is intended to become a product eventually, but may or may not, but he's still doing it with the intent of having it become a product. So anyway, check out his streams, 7 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, except next week. He is going to be out Monday through Thursday, but on Friday he will be celebrating 25 years as a developer. I want to say 25. I hope 25 is the right number. And so he's going to have a community day as well, in the morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time, UTC -4, and he's going to go for as long as he goes for. And then we'll have our normal, provided I don't have jury duty again coming up, because I still need to check today and next week, Friday, to see if I have jury duty. But that's TBD. Check him out. if you have the availability to. But that is it for the stream today. Thank you all for being here. I did miss a few comments that I want to read before I completely end. Thank you, TBD, for responding to Lambadoo, because I totally lost track of reading chat after a bit. My brain just went, Urgh. But Zulius said that he spotted Science streams in the TwitchCon opening ceremony in a clip about new-ish Twitch features. That's cool. Of course, he is a Twitch ambassador, if you didn't know, but Science Streams his channel is an amazing science-related channel, if you couldn't tell by the name. He and his wife, Lita, and his daughter, can't think of her name. But anyway, they make up the team called Science Streams. He's the first science-related Twitch ambassador, and he does a whole bunch of really, really cool and interesting things with microbiology, with ants, obviously, and other bugs. The stream that I paid the most attention to when I was lurking on there was one where he was dissecting a queen ant. It was crazy. They're like, I mean, they're bigger than most ants, but they're still super tiny, and he's just all cutting it up and taking it out. It was crazy. So check out his streams. He streams just about every day. He does IRL streams where he walks through zoos and through nature in general, talks about the science there, and just an overall entertaining and cool, very, very cool person. Yeah. Okay. Did I miss shouting out anyone? I hope not. If you wanted a shout out and you are here, then let me know. I did shout out Thindle when you came in. Thindle, again, another .NET developer working on modernizing applications, one of my favorite topics and types of work to do. Snubble was talking about, when he was talking about just obscure operator and custom operators, he showed an example of, I think, where he used it. Is that what I read? Put everything in system. I think you showed an example of where you used it. Yeah, just making things small so they fit on really, really tiny machines. My opinions are also subjective truths. That is the cross I have to bear, to trying to make people see that I am always right. I never argue. I just explain why I'm right. Second place in the competition, to be fair, just 3 contestants. But still. But yes, thank you all. Do come again if you feel like it. I stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I almost said Pacific. Mountain Standard Time, which is UTC -6 currently. And on Monday, we will be getting back to the Stream project, which is a financial management application. You can see it, it's open source right there. We're gonna finish up with the footer on Monday and start doing the conversion to .NET 8, hopefully. Except we still need to review the other modes to make sure that everything is still positioned the way that it's supposed to. So who knows what'll happen. But very soon we will be upgrading it from .NET 7 to .NET 8, going through that process. Once that's done, again, like I keep mentioning, and I'm mentioning it again just so that I can get some opinions back from you guys on what you would like to see. But we can choose to either start going back to the way that I used to stream, which is doing my normal work day, so streaming my actual job, which I'll be less interactive during those streams because I'll be focused on doing my work and you know, giving the customer the best quality product that I can while they're paying me for it. Or we can move to a different project, which is most likely going to be converting a Java server type thing to C#, or 3, stay on the financial management tracker and do the UI design for the data entry fields and then implement those as well. And that should be the last bit of the financial management tracker. If you don't feel like seeing the financial management tracker anymore on stream, I'm still going to finish it myself, keep it open source, because I will be using it myself. so the project won't get dropped or anything. But yeah, Scott is already doing a vote for doing Workday type stuff. Cool. We can definitely do that. Anything.net is good too. I agree. Like that's the main reason that I just picked a project and went with it, because I wanted to continue being able to talk with you guys about .net, especially Blazor type stuff. But yeah, so what we're going to do though is we're going to raid out now, because I need to get back to work. I actually needed to get back to work 10 minutes ago, but that's fine. We're going to raid Brad Dackey, who is a game developer extraordinaire. I'm going to shout out someone else because we're going over to Bardaki, and you can follow him as soon as we get there. But another streamer that I am currently lurking on is Andreas Sass Dev, who is making his own game engine in C#. I think he's working on a Jam game. No, he's playing a game currently called Frostpunk 2. I don't know if it's his or not. I've only been lurking. But anyway, that's it. Feel free to join our Discord if you feel like it. If you're already a part of way too many Discords, don't worry about it. It's a pretty quiet Discord, but we do have a lot of knowledgeable people there that if you do have a question and you feel like asking, you can ask, and you will most likely get at least a response that isn't berating you for asking a question. Also, I post all of the VODs to YouTube at some point after the stream, so if you missed a lot of today's discussions, you can watch it back if you feel like it. Probably Mondays when today's stream will be posted. Or you can just watch the VOD back on Twitch, of course. Okay, ciao for now. See you again. Make a minimal Minesweeper in Blazor.